All right, morning. Good to see everybody. Appreciate you guys being here. So definitely a lot of moving parts. It's definitely a fluid process. A lot going on this time of year. I think anytime you work through this roster sort of building process, you kind of put it in pencil because really nothing's etched in stone. So, and I think the unique thing this year, different this year, even similar to last year, is you're not playing a game Sunday. So you go back and kind of look at some of the roster reduction and roster cutdown. Cut the team on Tuesday, form the practice squad on Wednesday, and then you're playing a game on Sunday. So I think the difference, this year and last year as well, is you have a little bit of time and flexibility. So to kind of make good decisions, take your time, understand you're going to add players. We're going to add players today, tomorrow, next week, practice squad, roster. It's going to be a myriad of transactions that take place here over the next, I would say, 5 to 7 days. And then by Tuesday, Wednesday next week, I think everybody will be in a situation where, other than KC who's playing Thursday night, and, everybody will kind of be situated and get ready to go for the first week. So I'd say we're working through some things here today on our end as well, like every team is doing. But, excited about the opportunity in front of us, excited about the opportunity to start to prepare for, a really good opponent, really good team that we're going to face, one of the best programs probably, in the history of the league here over the last number of years. So a lot of work in front of us, certainly making progress. Kind of where we are for today is kind of where we are. We'd expect, like I said, some things to change here over the next few days. But, with that, take some questions. I'll actually let Brandon Scott ask the first question. So I appreciate you being here. Yeah, every year is different. I'd say this year is probably unlike, any that I've been a part of relative to, the offensive line. I think when you go back and look at when we started maybe the spring, Charlie was a part of it, Q was a part of it, and then we drafted Juice. We had some other players. So, and I'd say as the spring and the training camp went, we just lost depth and we lost players. So nothing we can do about it. It's just the reality of the NFL. It's going to happen. So our job is to fix problems, find solutions, and do what we feel makes the most sense for the team. Sometimes you have to react to the circumstances that are in front of you, and that's what we try to do. So, Charlie, once that happened kind of over the summer, kind of had an idea there. Q got hurt. I would say specifically Kenyon, it was just a matter of, when, not if. This was going to happen. So I'd say, and D'Amico made a comment the other day, he's proud of the player, proud of the kid for, I'd say, mental and physical toughness that he showed. I think he was dealing with a lot of things physically. He was dealing with some things, I would say, on a personal level as well. And at some point, if a player is in a position that his condition or situation puts him at a disadvantage, it's not fair to the player, it's not fair to the team, and it's not fair to the individual. So in the end, this is, let's say, in the game, it may have been exacerbated a little bit, but again, we knew in May this was a possibility. And to his credit, he worked through it, and I'd say did the best he could with the situation that he was given. And in the end, we just felt for the betterment of the team and the player that this was the best decision. So he goes to injured reserve, get ready for the 2024 season, and the train keeps moving. That's the NFL. Nobody's going to feel sorry for where you are as a team. So it's unfortunate. It's one of the things that you have to deal with. We have to deal with it. Every team's got to deal with it. So it's kind of, it's kind of where we are. Go ahead, Brandon. Yeah, the big thing is just get ready for next year. So get ready, get healthy and get ready for the offseason. That's the reality of the situation. So that's where the focus is. So played last year, got good experience, had some good plays, had some bad plays. Every young player goes through that. So we are where we are this year. So look forward to 2024, kind of see where he is come February or March, whenever the offseason program starts. Yeah, sure, John. I would say Jones, talk about him specifically first. So has a lot of experience, young player. He's played tackle. He's played inside. Probably a little bit better tackle and guard, but has the ability to play across positions. still only 26, 27 years old. So I'd say just kind of working through kind of the depth on the offensive line overall. He was a player that we thought made sense to add to the team. I'd say Green, don't really want to comment right now on that, I'd say, because that transaction really isn't final until the player reports and passes physical. So I'd say we're kind of working through that. But I would say just generally speaking with him, John, that was a player that we did a lot of work on in 2021, whenever he was drafted. Had good traits, had a good playing style, had good testing numbers, played a lot as a rookie. Again, just varying opinions. Like, he actually played probably more competitive than people think. I know there's some commentary made about him, specifically from the guy that played quarterback there. But in the end, can't really worry about what happened somewhere else. Try to focus on where we are now and, what do you think we can bring to the table. Has, some inside flexibility, center guard center. He's an offensive lineman. That's what he is. Yeah, I think we're working through that process here. I think we'll have a better idea, next week, kind of once we start to get ready for Baltimore here. So try to put the best 5 out there that, kind of give us the best chance against Baltimore and see how it goes. Yeah, number one, the formulation of the practice squad. Number two, going through the waiver wire to see if there's any players that we want to add to the team or add to the program in some capacity. I'd say the reality is, whoever these players are, the likelihood of that player contributing against Baltimore is probably slim to none. So what you're trying to do is balance short-term versus maybe some longer-term opportunity to add a younger player that you like, that you want to try to get in your program. So some of this is just roster mechanics of getting people in the building, getting people in the program that you think potentially could have a future, and maybe they help this year, but, maybe it's next year as well. So there were, literally 1,000-ish players on the waiver wire yesterday. So, are we going to know 1,000 players? Sorta. We'll probably know some players a little bit more than others. But I think what you have are categories of players that are probably off the roster, off the practice squad, kind of camp practice type players. That's kind of one category. And you have another category of, all right, practice squad type players that maybe at some point could have the opportunity to add to your team during the year that you would feel comfortable going into the game, and they would be competitive against whoever the opponent is. So again, I think there's just going to be some on and off. I think the other thing you'll see is players that are on rosters come off roster relative to whatever their injury situation may be. So, which will open up the opportunity for players that maybe were released yesterday or today to get added back onto the roster. So, like I said in the beginning, it's just a very fluid process. So just try to be pragmatic and diligent about it. Just try to make good, sound decisions. Kind of take the emotion out of it and just look at a snapshot of where we are. What can we do? What's feasible? What's not? And then really, we have one more day of practice this week, and then everybody goes on kind of a mini break here. The players are off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so it'll be pretty quiet. Come back Monday, and then kind of start to go through your normal preparation here. So our staff, scouting staff, has just gone through over the last couple days, met, we've talked, spent a lot of time, like canvass the league, and every player is not going to be for your team. So you just try to find maybe the right ones, maybe that you have some history with, or that maybe you had some affinity for coming out of the college process. So, James and his staff have done a great job of kind of organizing that. Really what you're trying to distill is trying to take massive amount of information, distill it down into, really you're talking about probably a handful of players that potentially you could claim. And then once you get past that, then try to look at your practice squads and really start to formulate that. So I'd say for the next 24 to 48, that's really where we are. We still have certainly more than capable players that, the players in the building, we feel good about them. So again, there's a cost of everything that you do. So there's a financial cost, there's a draft capital cost if you want to go down that road. So, it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. We can make some modifications and changes on the fringes, see if we can upgrade the depth, And I'd say there's a lot of teams that are dealing with the same problem or situation. So, I mean, we feel confident with the players that are in the building. We just lost a lot of players, so our job is to try to find solutions, and that's what we're doing. Yeah, I think it was try to give him an opportunity to see if it could be able to make it through a long period of time. So I think the issue that he had, like, we knew it was going to have to get fixed. So try to give the players the best opportunity, maybe without putting them at a disadvantage, or physically, if they're able to endure and go through enough, they can handle it, great. But if it gets to a point where it doesn't allow a player to do their job at an effective level, then it just, in the end, you got to make a determination. So instead of kind of hemming and hawing about it, like, in the end, it was just, all right, we knew probably it could potentially end up in this situation, so the timing is now. So, all right, we made the decision and we move forward. Yeah, nothing specific, Sarge. I think it's really a case-by-case basis. Kind of look at what are your options externally relative to what you already have internally, either on the roster or on your practice squad. So try to use the practice squad pretty judiciously here, and they're really an extension of your roster. So, like, if you had to play a game with one of those players, would you feel comfortable with them going out there in a specific role capacity? They'd be able to go out there and do their job. So I'd say really it's case by case. It's kind of looking at everybody, and if there's a player that you feel upgrades what you have, great. And then it's the opportunity cost to what do you give up at the expense of who and or what, and how much are you really upgrading. I mean, I think everybody can kind of throw names out on paper and say, well, this looks good, like, oh yeah, this guy will help your team. Probably a short-sighted way to look at it. So it's just try to take the information that we have, try to make a good evaluation of our players, know your players as best as you possibly can, and then make a decision. If we add X, then we have to drop this player. Are we really upgrading, or is it about the same? Are we comfortable with this? So those are the types of discussions that will take place. Not we're making this massive wholesale change and we're going to find this, magic solution that jumps out of the sky. It's like not realistic. Go ahead. Yeah, I think you're just looking for progress each day. So building on little things that day after day. So I'd say that position overall, I'd say all three players from where they started in the spring to where they are now, like, they've all improved. And I mean, we're one of 12 teams, 13 teams that are carrying three quarterbacks on a roster. So I mean, we feel good about all three players. And I think the reality is, I mean, unfortunately, this is just the way the league goes. There's a good chance you're going to see all three of those guys at some point during the year. I mean, you don't know when it's going to happen or plan for it, but understand the operation, execute the system, understand the call, understand the integrity of play, understand the intent of the play, where are we going to go with the ball, throw the ball on time, make the good decision. What is the defense doing? Are we making the right decision? Okay, if there's a bad play, what happened on the play? Can you self-correct and not have that same mistake happen again? So I would say overall that group has done a really good job of that from kind of start to finish. And I think CJ, the big thing with him, he's put his head down and worked from the day he walked in the building. And every player that's here earns their opportunity with their performance. And, I think he's certainly emblematic of that from, start to where we are now, understanding, still now it's 17 games to go here. And each week is hopefully going to get a little bit better. There's going to be some ups and downs. This league is hard. We've talked about that. So, I think is to prepare, focus on get ready for the next opponent, which is Baltimore in this case. What happens in Baltimore game doesn't have any relevance, and what's going to happen against, Indianapolis or Jacksonville. So kind of take it day by day, try to get better, try to improve. If there's something to fix, try to get it fixed, try to make sure the same mistake doesn't happen, and just move on to the next thing. Go ahead, John. Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's probably TBD, John, really, in both cases. I think as we get to next week, we'll kind of have a better idea. So don't want to kind of jump to conclusion or kind of comment here, however many days out. So to say similar to some of the roster stuff, it's fluid. I would say this, would expect to see Titus at some point, when that is. I'd say we're kind of working through that. And then Charlie's case, The fact that he's on PUP, so that's a minimum of 6 weeks. And once we get to the 7th week, kind of see where he is. And then if there's an opportunity to open up that 21-day practice window, is that applicable at that time, or are we going to need a little bit more time? So I think as we go, as we get more information, I think we'll be able to make, more of a determination about what their availability is going to be. And I'd say, even though they're similar, each case is probably a little bit different. Titus is definitely closer, it appears. Charlie's probably a little bit further, so we'll kind of have to just work through that. Go ahead, Aaron. Yeah, I think we feel confident in the players that are here. So, I think secondary as a whole, we have a lot of players, have a lot of versatility. So we'll try to utilize our players to the best of their ability, put them in the best position to go out and execute the defense as best they can. I'd say the process in and of itself, Sarge, isn't all that different. I think you just try to be as pragmatic and just sort of, realistic as possible. And I think the one thing you learn is you can't jump to conclusions. You gotta have to take the emotion out of it, and you really just have to respond in real time to your current situation. In the end, you're just trying to put together what you feel are the best group of people in the building. And I'd say that's the one thing that's probably going to constantly change. So you have to change with it. So what you want to do is go back and look at some of the decisions that you've made and say, all right, could we have done something a little bit differently? Was our thought process maybe a little jaded in one area relative to another? But just try to look at the big picture. And just try to take the information as it comes, and try to just be good, sound decision makers. Understanding we've kind of done it a few different ways, but you have to balance, here's where we are today, what do we need to do to get ready for Baltimore, and what are some of the things maybe looking ahead to try to plan and prepare for a little bit. So it's very, there's so many multiples that are involved in this. There's no perfect formula. Nobody has all the answers. I certainly don't, that's for sure. So you just try to, I'd say, be as honest and open with the dialogue as you go. D'Amico's been tremendous the whole way through. This process, the draft process, every kind of step of the way. And I think we can sit and have a conversation and just figure out, all right, what makes the most sense, kind of us being open-minded to hear each other's side of it, because in the end, it's a team effort, and we're all trying to arrive at the same end point. Just try to put together a good team that we feel gives us the best chance on a weekly basis to go out there and perform at an optimum level. Go deep. Yeah, Mike's experienced player. He's took advantage of his opportunities, in games. I'd say he took advantage of some opportunities in practice. That group overall, they kind of complement each other, real well. So, we kind of have 4 right now, including Dare and Mike, and the DP and Motor, are here, and we're certainly happy, with that group overall. So, I think it's a balance of offense, the kicking game, kind of how big or small that's going to be. Each week that could change. But Mike's been, had a great attitude. He's been consistent with his performance when he got here. Still a younger player, even though he has 4 or 5 years of experience. So, it's good to have those players here. And then we'll only give one the ball, during the game, probably 2 maybe. But you're gonna at some point need those players, and we'll probably, my guess is, add another player or 2 in some capacity at that group. There'll probably be a timing element involved, but yeah, overall, that's a pretty good group to work with, among others on the team. Go ahead. Yep, and then I'll come back to you, Brooks. Yeah, it all goes together. You kind of have an idea of where you are from, everybody has a cap where they are currently. You have resources that you're going to have to allocate during the season to practice squad, injured reserve, maybe some other player acquisition during the course of the year. So, you try to budget accordingly. You need X number of dollars just to to operate during the year. And then whatever you don't use this year is just going to roll to the next year. So, I mean, I think right now the focus is more on managing the team day-to-day 23. We kind of know where we are 24 relative to what our cap situation is, who's under contract, who might be under contract. There's an opportunity to maybe extend a player's contract, similar to what we did with Cashman there last year at the end, done that a few other times. So say some of those discussions will probably be a little bit later. I'd say early on it's more day-to-day, managing a budget of IR, injury settlements, practice squad, claim a player, trade for a player, what's that cost? All right, once you get to about November, all right, then you just got to get to the end, and then you maybe start to flip the page here a little bit and, worry about 2024. But all of it is a factor, so you have to consider it all at some point, and just use the information that you have and just try to make the best decision possible. Yeah, I mean, every team goes through it. I mean, it's the way it goes. So some of it's cost of doing business. So, I mean, injuries sometimes are things that, you can control, whatever a player's status is. I mean, we got to make decisions. So, I mean, I've said this countless times. The draft is a flip of the coin. Whatever it is. You get the players on a team. All right, you create a roster, create competition. You keep the players that you feel make the most sense. Some players you can't keep for various circumstances, whatever the situation is. So, honestly, don't spend too much time on that. So, players go on and off rosters daily. Draft picks go on and off rosters. You've seen players traded that were drafted in the second round. You've seen players drafted, trading that were drafted in the first round, the third round. It's cost of doing business. So, try to go back and look at, if there's anything we missed or something different. I would say with those players, nothing really changed. I think they're what we thought they were going to be. They're good players. They're all probably going to be in this league for a period of time, whether they're playing for us or for somebody else. So, the preseason, D'Amico's talked about this, so we can only keep X. So, but you're being evaluated by 31 other teams. So if you don't have an opportunity here, you might have an opportunity somewhere else. So, and maybe there's an opportunity at some point down the road to have that player come back into your building. So try to keep an open mind. Don't have a fixated mindset or thought process. So get the players in the building, however they get here. Keep the ones that you can keep. You got to make decisions. You got to move on from some players. And it's cost of doing business. That's the way it is. Yeah, he's worked really hard. I'd say he's also looks like a player that hadn't played football in 18 months. So when you miss that amount of time, sometimes it maybe takes a little bit longer. But attitude has been good. He's gone out there and made some plays. There's other plays that he certainly can improve and do better. But for what he's gone through to get to this point, it's a great story, like no question about it. Okay, so now there's got to be some kind of, tangible football production behind it. And I would say a player like that, there's probably a chance he's going to be a little bit better 6 to 8 weeks down the road than maybe he is now. So just when you miss that amount of time, it takes, it's like your team. Like you're really evaluating your team in the first 4 weeks, kind of where you start. You sort of think you hope you know what you have, but you're really not sure. And then you get to week 4 or 5. All right, you have more information. So I'd say in John's case, that'll probably be the case. But, just a credit to his, I would say, physical and mental toughness, his work ethic, and just his ability to fight through, something that probably not a lot of people could fight through with a great attitude. So credit to him. It's credit to the medical staff, credit to the coaching staff. But at some point, you got to kind of turn the page into, it's a great story, into we got to play football and got to figure out a way that, players can help the team, because in the end, that's the most important thing. But love John, love having him here. Excited for the opportunity in front of him. And, now it's going to be about production and, what everybody does with those opportunities. That's the hope. We don't control what the record is, what we're going to be, what it's going to look like. All we can control is our attitude and our performance on a day-to-day basis. It's a process-driven league, and you just have to find ways just to continually improve and get better, I'd say, on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So I'd say we have a lot of players in the locker room with I would say, a competitive edge that are excited about the season, excited to get started. They're good players. What does that manifest itself relative to wins and losses? Like, none of us know that. I mean, it's just, we don't know. So all we can do is prepare, try to go out there and perform, take advantage of the opportunities that we get, and just try to win that week, each week, and then kind of see where we are at the end of the season. So that's the truth. I mean, I think this is, it's fancy, a fun part of the year, record projections, who's going to do what and all that. I mean, and honestly, it's a waste of time. So I know it's people got to do it, but we don't really spend too much time on that. All we're focused on is what do we got to do, figure out a way to beat Baltimore. What are some of the ways we can do that? Try to find some, look, this is one of the arguably hardest places to play in the league. I've been there multiple times. It's a pain in the ass. So it's a hard environment. It's a good team. It's a good program. We got a lot of good players. So we're going to prepare. We're going to go out there and try to put the best product on the field as possible, and just go out there and execute enough plays, and hopefully put ourselves in, the positive column. So if it doesn't happen, then we just got to turn the page and go to the next thing. But I think our players are excited, ready to get started, and I think there's certainly a competitive edge with this team. Starts with the head coach, and it trickles down to the rest of the building and the players. And I think you've seen that in practice. I think you've seen that in games. And we're going to need everybody when we walk into Baltimore here, a week from Sunday. Yeah, it's really the starting point. So start with that. Let's go back. Let's take a look. Let's go to sort of rehash. And then if it's a player that's played, all right, how is that player played relative to maybe what we thought it was going to be? Because the draft, it's projection. It's total projection with just about everybody. So try to marry those up, try to match that up, and then kind of look at your team, where you might be. And then if you look at the situation and say, you know what, this makes sense, then you go ahead and do it. If you're not sure, but that's a great starting point. I would say it's a really good, useful tool, which is why we put so much emphasis on that process. And I think our scouts and everybody involved in the college scouting process sees the importance. We reinforce that with them, and we kind of see the fruits of the labor. I mean, it just reinforces the importance of everybody's role within the organization, and every step of the way, what you're doing is important. But specifically to your question, yes, that's absolutely the starting point. And then you might try to find other ways to gather information, anything new, and try to compare that and match it up with, well, here's what we thought, here's what somebody said. Okay, he was in this program, here's some information they provided to us. Combination of what we see on the field to maybe you have a coach or somebody that you have a relationship with that could shed some light on that individual player situation. So try to use all those factors into the decision-making process, absolutely. Yeah, I think we've had some players that have worked back there, during training camp. So, we'll kind of start to work from, all right, what does the game day roster look like? And based on that, who we think is going to be active. Then, all right, try to slot some people into roles. And if there's a player out there that maybe could fill that specific role, maybe there's an opportunity to add that player to the team, or it could be a player that maybe comes back here at some point. So, it'll be interesting to see. Just kind of what went on in the preseason on the whole kickoff front. I don't know the exact number, but it looked like there was a lot of kickoff returns that took place during the regular season. So, and more traditional kickoff returns. I would say you saw a couple instances where there was some squib and some other strategies that were employed. So, kickoff returns, forget about the rule change, but even going back, it's maybe one a game, maybe, right? 15 or 20. You go look through the kickoff return statistics. the guys that are the tops in the league, they have maybe 20, 25 returns, so it's a little more than one a game. So, strategy-wise, I'm not sure it'll be any different. Say a punt return, you just got to make sure you got a guy that can handle the ball. There's, I would say, field punts, field returns, plus 50 punts. So it might be the same guy, it might be a different guy. So it might be kind of multiple people handling the role. So kind of see how it goes, see what our options are. We think we have some players here internally that can handle that. Maybe there's some players externally that aren't here that could be an option as well. So we'll kind of look at that and kind of figure out what makes the most sense. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Contact with him? Can he get a playbook, that kind of thing?
No, there's no contact with him. I feel like the mics are so far away. Do you feel that way?
It's because of the light.
I don't know. It's because of the light. There's no contact with him after he signs. He's suspended. He reverts to the reserve suspension list right away. Obviously, coach was with him in Indy. We did work on him coming out of the draft.
Why the decision to move on from him? And
Well, a lot of these guys that we brought, that we cut today, we're interested in bringing back. We have a practice squad. We've talked about the roster being 69 guys as opposed to 53 and having flexibility in those spots. And I think when you look at Sip, obviously the season didn't end for us the way that we wanted to, and he would say the same thing, but also have confidence in his abilities. And so we'll just see what happens here in the next 24 hours with him and a bunch of these other guys, and try to bring some of these guys back and give them a chance to continue to competing for spots. And we got the activations there on the practice squad as well for other guys too. So.
What did you like Albert O'Craven for trade?
I think first thing you talk about Albert, you talk about the physical ability. I mean, he's 6'5", he's almost 260 pounds. He runs a 4.4. He's got a huge wingspan. He's got really good lower body flexibility for a big guy, and we had a chance to watch him together. And obviously, coaches had tremendous success with that position, and some guys who look like this. And so, bring him in here. He's 25 years old. We have some people in the building who were with Denver when they drafted him, and give him an opportunity. And that's not a slight on the tight ends we have here. Obviously, we think Dallas is one of the best players at his position in the league, and we have two young players in Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra that we brought in here that we really like. And for us, any time we have an opportunity to add an offensive player that we think can help us and help our team, we look at that. So that's the reason we brought him in.
What did you see from Eli Ricks this summer that?
Yeah, I would say this just to start. This is a hard day for us as an organization. We bring in these guys and we ask them to give them everything that they got during the off-season program, during training camp, in the preseason, and we got to sit down with each and every one of them, and we do sit down with each and every one of them, and we thank them for their efforts and their energy. And so, it's not easy having these conversations with those guys, and then we kind of try to shift quickly. So it's a hard transition having as many conversations as we do with these guys, and then kind of shifting here and kind of thinking about all the good. So.
Nicholas Morrow came in and he was running a lot with the ones to begin with, started out with OTAs and of course he's on the release list. What changed from the time he first went in when he was released, and how does it say about the improvement of Zach Cunningham and how he joined the Alley?
Yeah, well, I think when you talk about Zach Cunningham, obviously a productive player in the National Football League, and he came here a little bit late in camp and had an opportunity, and he continues to have an opportunity. And I don't know that it's so much about what Nick did as opposed to being really heavy at some other positions here. And again, as we look at the roster, we're looking at it through the lens of having 69 guys and knowing that there's some fluid processes on some players and some things. And so, we'll do whatever we can to put the best possible guys on the field for New England and through the rest of the season.
You cross-trained some of those outside edges guys at inside linebacker. Did that factor into the decision to maybe go a little light at inside linebacker?
Versatility always plays a role in that, and that makes some of the guys, I don't want to say more valuable, but the more you can do sometimes, the more likely we might keep you. So I guess. That's really, in Patrick's case, we felt good about that, and that he can play. He got a little bit of reps in the Indy game at linebacker. So, and that's just the nature of this league, and with things that are ever changing through the ups and downs of a season.
Howie, at what point did Eli Ricks kind of just look like a guy who might be a factor during the summer?
Yeah, obviously you talk about pedigree. He was the #1 corner in the country coming out of high school and going to LSU, and then didn't have his last season that he wanted to there. And he was a guy that we spent a lot of time on in the draft process, and he came in with an opportunity. And I think what we saw is this is a long, instinctive player with good athleticism and ball skills, and those guys are hard to find. And his work ethic, his care factor was really high, and so. That's a great success story for him when he had a lot of adversity here as a guy who really thought he'd be a high pick going into the year. And he came in with the right attitude, and we called him and told him he was on the team. And, at the same time, like we tell all these young players, there's no scholarships in the NFL for any of us. And so you got to keep working, got to keep improving, and, we'll keep judging. We evaluate every day, and that's what we'll keep doing.
When it came to sort of special teams, you guys lost Zach and Sean. Obviously, the injuries came on was a big part of it. Do you guys feel comfortable in that aspect when you look at somebody like Gardner, who played a lot and played well on special teams in the preseason?
Yeah, what we do when we have these conversations, we spend a lot of time with conversations about the depth chart and roles, and so we make sure that Coach Clay is in a position to put out his best guys too in the game. And so we'll talk about every role on special teams, from wing to gunner to kickoff returner, and make sure that he feels really good. And our full focus is on having the best possible season we can have. And so that starts with the first game of the season. That's been Coach's message, like keep your eye on the first game. And so everything we do is focused on trying to give our coaches the best opportunity to win that first game.
Generally, Howie, in what ways do you feel different about the roster as it stands now than you did maybe when camp started?
I think that you have demonstrated ability through camp. I think that we're a good enough team that when you see the players go against good competition on both sides of the ball, you can get a good evaluation of those guys. I think the 2 joint practices, seeing us go against other teams, gives us a good evaluation of those guys. And so I think as opposed to like hoping on some guys, you see demonstrated ability, and you get a chance here with the Thursday night game to go back and really have all these guys in a vacuum and watch them individually like you would if they were on another team, and really try to make the best possible decision. So I think that helped. And again, we know that when the real games start, that it's going to be a different dynamic. Just like when the playoffs start, it's faster. It's going to be way faster for these guys. But excited for the start of the season.
You guys had with Derek Barnett, and what sense did you have of his role?
Yeah, Zach, I think you know us well enough to know that any conversations we have with players are private, but tremendous respect for Derek and the player in person he is and what he brings to this football team, and love having him here. That's why we bring him back, and that's a position for us, which you see with the 53-man roster, it's a priority, and so we're going to keep as many of those guys as we possibly can. Last year we got in a little bit of a bind and how to give a pick and how to sign guys in the middle of the year. And so for us, having those guys lets us sleep a little bit better at night, and Derek's certainly one of those guys.
You've ever had
Yeah, I just think he's had a great camp, and so excited that he's a part of this football team. I love his toughness, his edge, and his ability that he brings to this team every day.
Nick, it seems like he was at least hoping to find a role elsewhere where he could play more. Are you concerned at all about his feelings on his role here?
No, because we've had discussions with him, and like Howie said, we'll keep those discussions that we have with our players privately.
Who will be the punt returner?
Like I
don't
said,
have to make. Here, I'll answer it. It's just, hey, we don't have to make any of those decisions right yet, and we still have time, and we still have, like Howie said, you have 69 guys to choose from. We're not going to pick Jordan Mailata or something like that, but you got a lot of guys to choose from, and guys that have been working to, that we've been working all offseason and all training camp catching punts. So we feel good about our options there.
Jordan, if you're watching this, we love you.
What did you see from Eli Ricks this summer that made you comfortable going deep with young guys? After he asked about Makai.
No, is that okay? That we'll get you that. Is that okay? I'm serious. I don't mean that. Okay.
You've had punter situations before where you've had to make a move within a week or something like that. But, obviously the holding situation is a factor in if you have to go with another punter. Are you any concerned about that?
No, I think that, anytime we make a decision, we have to go through the worst case scenario and the options and be prepared for those options. And I think not just a punter, but any of the questions that you answer, we go through the possibilities that it doesn't work out exactly the way that we thought. And we make sure we're all on board with those scenarios. And, certainly when we talk about Jake and how good of a player he is, we want him to be in a great spot because he's an important player for this team. And so we'll make sure that's taken care of.
Understanding that the practice squad is part of this, but this is as thin as you've been at wide receiver in terms of the 53 in a long time. What's your comfort level with that position, and is that a spot you'll look external before the fact?
Well, we'll look at everything here in the next 24 hours. The roster situation is fluid. Obviously, we're going to be aggressive when we get back to upstairs to our desk, and we've spent a lot of time in preparation. Our scouts have done a tremendous job of putting in a position where, this is all funneled down, and really the organization of this process is as good as I've ever seen it here. And that's a great credit to our front office group, and I think that for us, we'll look at all those things. But I think, Zach, from our perspective, really, when we talk about the roster and the numbers on the roster, they're going to end up being the same numbers. And so I think when you look at it, we're really concerned with the 48 guys who are going to be up. And then the rest of those guys, they're all practicing. They're all going to have a role in practice, and so I don't know that we feel like we're necessarily going to thin there. Obviously we got to get some guys back and see who's available. But when it shakes out and you look at the numbers, they'll be the same as they always have been.
Howie, from a philosophical standpoint, the recent rule changes over the past few years, more liberal IR, the bigger practice squad, put vets on the practice squad. How much has that changed your philosophy when you build a roster, or has it not that much?
Well, I think we've talked about the larger practice squad gives you flexibility in these situations to really take a big picture look at the roster as opposed to really just focused on the 53. I think what the IR rules do is it gives you opportunities to get guys back, and so it was such a major decision to put guys on IR and losing them for the year, and so it gives you more roster flexibility, which obviously for guys in my spot is a huge deal. But I think that we're always looking for the flexibility, and both those rules give us increased flexibility.
You have three young corners who are
Questions Rubes ever asked? Wow.
who are undrafted, Job, Ricks, and Goodrich, all undrafted young guys. What's kind of the trick at that position to find undrafted guys who can compete for roster spots?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a trick. I think it's a great credit to our scouts for bringing those guys to our attention, and I think it's a great credit to those guys for how hard they work, and it's a great credit to our coaching staff for taking the time to develop these guys. And we talk all the time, from the day that those guys come in our building. Every day we're talking about developing, and I think that takes everyone in the building to join in on that. But obviously when they get on the field, the coaches do a great job of taking their skill set and utilizing them and having success. And great credit to our defensive back coaches led by DK.
So there's more than a handful of guys on this release list that have been contributors to this team over the years and that have been on the 53 for whatever reason. Was this process for you more difficult than it has been in past years?
It was, especially when you go through, some of the success that we've had, but also some of the adversity that we've had together. And I think that's why this is a hard day. Those are hard conversations, and especially when you've done something with a lot of these people that it was special. And so I think this is a harder day than certainly that the two of us have had in the last 3 years. And on one way, it shows that your team's getting better, and which we're proud of. But it's definitely bittersweet to see some of these guys go, and I think some of these guys are going to get picked up before we have an opportunity to bring them back.
I want to see these guys play regular season games, but how would you compare the way you feel about the draft class at this point to maybe past years after training?
Yeah, I say this, like, I don't know that I've had a chance to really think about that. It's probably a fair question. I think that one of the great things that the league does, and a lot of things the league does great, is give us this weekend to kind of take a step back a little bit and kind of think about some things. And so that's something I'll seriously think about a little bit. But, you know, these guys, the rookie class came in with great energy, great attitude, you know, a great want to. And I think that anyone who's come to practice on a regular basis sees the energy that they're bringing every day. And also really proud that we have a group of veteran players who have embraced them, you know, and taken them under their wing. And, you know, I think one of our coaches had said to Coach and I that, you know, really the benefit of having great leadership is leaders who want to help the future of the organization, and we definitely have that with the players on this team.
Sorry, what made you want to trade for Albert O? I'm still working on the presentation. And
Me too.
the pro scouting thing, what did they say about him from the list?
Yeah, again, like just trying to be consistent. We talked a little bit about his traits right when we started this on Alberto, and I think this is a guy that not only has traits, but it's hard not to watch that last preseason game and see what it looks like when it looks right. And you know, I think Coach remarked, like, you know, not a lot of tight ends who have 100-yard receiving games in the preseason, and it was because he has a unique ability to uncover. You know, he's got lower body flexibility, he's got speed, he's got length, he's got all the tools in his body. And again, like, that's a start, and now he gets here, and I know that he'll be coached up, and we'll get the most out of him when he gets here.
Nick, this is your third one of these. Do you kind of get a feel when you cut down to 53 as far as, all right, we're strong here, we're not strong here, or do you just kind of?
Yeah, you know, obviously today you're thinking about the guys that aren't going to be with you anymore, and that's the tough part. But yeah, you always are going through. I mean, we talk about that, you know, all the time. Like we're in constant conversation, you know, staff meetings, conversations with just Howie and I that we're talking about how we feel about where we are here or where we are there. So that's not something that, like, you're working towards this step of where we are right now with 53, but that's something we've been thinking about for the last, you know, month and a half or whatever, really more than that, going back to OTAs. And so, you know, the process is, you know, exhaustive, and we've worn it out to the point where we are right now. So it's not like a aha moment, like, yeah, where we are right now, but because we've been thinking about it for so long.
To be fair, after this press conference on the draft, he said, let's go look at your board and let's see what our team looks like and see how we're getting down to 53.
Yeah.
Long way.
That is a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, Justin Evans is a guy that our pro staff deserves a lot of credit on. Last year in training camp, he was a guy that we had our eyes on. Obviously, you know, a highly decorated player at Texas A&M who went in the second round of the draft and then had some adversity, you know, through injuries and through COVID. And he was a guy that we were interested in.
This thing sucks.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. I'm going to have like a blue light head. How's my face look like? So, thank you. So, you know, we had watched him last year in preseason and felt fortunate that we were able to trade for the safety we were able to trade for last year, but he was definitely on our radar, and then we kept watching him, and so we know that this is a guy who's got really good physical tools. I think we like having him on the team. He loves football. He's got great energy about him, and you know, we're excited to see what he's going to do in an Eagles uniform.
And Nick, it's not necessarily a roster question, but Nolan Smith has been missing 5 practices and the preseason game. Any concern about him being ready for the season opener?
We'll see. He's getting ready. He's working hard every day to rehab himself and get himself ready to go. And if he's ready to go, we'll play him. If he's not, then we won't. But we feel good that he's.
I was going to do that.
We feel good that he's on the right path. But we'll see. I don't want to set any unrealistic expectations for him.